And such an institution ought to be swept from the face of the earth.
Sweet chariot.
For nearly 250 years, the New World that held the promise of freedom for oppressed white Europeans was a brutal prison for most Africans. The unfortunate souls who survived the abuse and filth aboard disease-ridden ships were condemned, along with their descendants, as human livestock, sold at auction to the highest bidder. Debate over whether or not to allow the westward expansion of slavery would lead to the bloodiest conflict in our nation's history. But the war that began as a means of preserving the Union held a much more personal promise for millions of Americans. Determined to claim basic human rights of freedom and education, and guided by an unwavering faith, former slaves turned soldiers would help defeat their oppressors. But the road to freedom would be a rocky one. Facing racial hatred and violence, African Americans would work tirelessly to rebuild families torn apart by slavery, to better themselves, and to claim their rightful place as American citizens.
He calls me, he calls.
Slavery was the great evil. You couldn't be a good man if you beat and whipped another man. Took everything that he labored for and killed him if he tried to run away, you know. No such thing as a good slave master.
There was a great deal of dehumanization. There was a failure to empathize. I think most slave owners did not think it was a terrible thing. You've got this economic interest that I think just superseded everything else.
People had to believe that the Negro was intellectually inferior. If not, it would have weighed heavily on their souls and consciousness. And the system was so perverse that slaves could be bought and sold, they could be bargained, they could be raffled off. These people are reduced to property.
The purchaser decided who he wanted. He might want a mother with an infant because that shows that she's fertile. Maybe he'll take that infant, but maybe he'll think that's too long an investment. If an infant was a burden, the trader might just get rid of that child. Some people lost not just one child, but many children. You know, they would beg, let me keep even one of them. There was so much loss, so much devastation.
My old master was in some respects kinder than many other slaveholders, but he lacked in that humane feeling which should have kept him from buying and selling human beings. Possessing absolute power over the bodies and souls of their slaves, and grown rich from their unrequited toil, they became possessed by the demon of avarice and pride, and lost sight of the most vital of the Christ-like qualities.
Born a slave in Virginia, Lewis Hughes was 11 when he saw his mother for the last time. His sale to a Mississippi planter would lead him to Tennessee's cotton capital of Memphis.
Memphis was a river town, becoming a fairly bustling city. No major industries at that point, other than